Okay, Megan, are we ready to get started?
All set.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you all for being so patient. Good afternoon, everyone. I am calling this hearing to order. For the record, my name is Kendra Lara, and I'm the District 6 City Councilor, and I am the chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks. I am joined this morning by my colleagues, Council President Ed Flynn, City Councilor at Large Erin Murphy. And that is all, the only two folks that are here. In accordance with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, modifying certain requirements for the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirements that public bodies conduct this meeting in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, the City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually via Zoom, and it is being recorded. This enables the City Council to carry out its responsibilities while ensuring that there is public access to its deliberation through adequate alternative means. This hearing is being recorded again, and it's being live streamed and will be shown at boston.gov/city-council-TV. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.ep@boston.gov, and all will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. And if you're interested in testifying virtually, please email Megan Kavanaugh at megan.kavanaugh, KAVANAGH, at boston.gov for the link. Today's hearing is on docket number 0791 in order for a hearing regarding the potential usage of city-owned land for off-leash dog parks. This matter was sponsored by myself and co-sponsored by Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, and it was referred to the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks on April 26 of 2023. I think that the folks who we invited from the administration are a little different, but I know that we are being joined today by Ryan Woods, who is the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation Department. Commissioner Woods, can you have anybody else from your team introduce themselves, please?
Don't see anyone else on from the team. I know Reverend Mariama White Hammond was unable to join, and we have Kathy Baker Cliffs, who her father passed away this week. So I think, as far as I know, I may be the only person representing the administration.
I thought that I saw someone else here, but okay.
Hi there. Yeah, just real quick.
Oh, Kat's here too. Sorry.
Here as well. Kat Eschel, President accounted for. Kat Eschel, Chief of Staff at the Mayor's Office of Environment, Energy, and Open Space.
Kat, welcome, and thank you so much for making time. And Commissioner Woods, please extend my condolences to your team member on behalf of myself and the council. We are also joined this morning from the community by Chris Arena. Is Chris Arena here? Roberta Hankton, community advocate, Friends of JP Dog Parks, Melissa Hamill, and Kaliga, who are both community advocates and members of the Friends of JP Dog Parks. Are there any other community panelists that are joining us here that I have not introduced? Beautiful. I would like to start off by saying that, this is an evergreen conversation for the Boston City Council. We have continued to try to figure out how to make dog parks, particularly off-leash dog parks, accessible to people all across the city for as long as I can remember, and certainly for as long as I have been an elected official. And a number of issues have come up in community with space. And so when we saw the mayor's land audit and we identified that there were places in that land audit that were either too small or too awkwardly sized to be developed in any other way, a light bulb went off in my head to figure out how we could possibly use some of that city-owned land for smaller off-leash dog parks, or big, depending on the size of the plot of land. And so I'm happy that we're here to start having that conversation, and I'm really grateful for all of the advocacy of groups like the Friends of the JP Dog Park, who have been advocating for many, many years and have had some recent wins when it comes to community dog parks. And so we are going to start off by hearing from the administration. So we're going to hear from Commissioner Woods, and Kat, if you have anything to share on your end on behalf of Chief White Hammond or your team as well. So we're going to get started with Commissioner Woods. Commissioner Woods, you have the floor.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Ryan Woods. As the council mentioned, I have the pleasure of serving as the commissioner for the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. overseeing our 331 properties. And I say that because it's our parks and playgrounds, our golf courses, our cemeteries, our urban wilds, our 42,000 street trees, and our animal care and control shelter in Roslindale. So it is a wide spectrum. It has been an initiative of Mayor Wu to try to help locate an area to be a dog recreation space in every neighborhood in the city of Boston. And that is on city property. That is also working with our state partners. There are several dog parks that are on Massport property, one on MWRA property. DCR is more open, it seems like, to adding some in the city. We are working with them and the new Commissioner Brian Arrigo to help locate some areas. The Boston Parks Department currently has 6 official off-leash dog areas that are fenced in parks, and the Boston Common is still a pilot area where they have dogs off leash and try to remove every 6 months, and it is to the cost of about $20,000 for the Friends of the Public Garden to reseed and aerate the areas as the panels continue to move each year. So they're committed to that. There is in the master plan for Boston Common to put in an official dog recreation space as part of the master plan because the panels just aren't working for the Friends financially. The administration also put in our capital budget a revolving fund where we're able to reach to have money to put towards a project. So every time we're doing a capital construction project, we'd also sometimes hear from constituents saying, how come there's not a dog park in this project? And we'd always say, we need to add some extra money to the budget. It was not in the scope. Well, now having this money in capital budgets, we can add that to the scope. So if we are at a capital project and there is enough room to put a dog recreation space, we'd be able to tap into those funds to add it to a project if it fits in the dimensions. We try to at least have 10,000 square feet when possible. We are finding sometimes that is not enough, especially when you're trying to sanction off small dog areas and large dog areas. If you go to areas outside the city and the suburbs, for example, Marshfield just put in a new dog park that I checked out the other day. It's one in their town and everyone has to drive to it, but it's on 2 acres of land. So, you know, the dogs are able to run free and really recreate. We do not have acres currently that we have designated for dog recreation space. So we're sometimes seeing, even though we may have a dog recreation space, for example, in Peters Park in the south end, the preference is to still put the dogs in the Little League field in the same park, just because there's more area to run. And they're not on pea stone or gravel or stone dust. It's on grass and it's in the Little League area. So that's sometimes a challenge that they are very confined. But there are currently 6, and the off-leash pilot area in the Boston Common makes it a 7th in the city of Boston. So we are working to try to add more. We are always adding it into our community conversations on our capital projects, and willing to hear more suggestions, because I think dog owners know sometimes the areas in the city of Boston better than we do, and where these open spaces are and might be great areas. So we look forward to engaging in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Kat, would you like to share anything? Do you have anything, or are you just going to answer questions?
I think we're just eager to be here. Thank you for holding this conversation. Just to echo Commissioner Woods' comment about the opportunity with state partnership as well. There have been some really productive conversations in that space as well. So, but generally, really eager to just hear from folks on the panel. Thank you for having us.
Great. Thank you so much for being here both. We're going to move on to hear from the community panelists. Megan, Melissa Hamill and the community panelists sent over a presentation. I think that this would be a good moment to pull that up so that they can get ready. Melissa, do you have an order in which you would like the community panelists to present?
Yeah, we were going to start with Roberta. She's going to read a statement by the Friends of JP Dog Parks, and then we'll do a brief PowerPoint presentation, which is basically going over information that's already sort of been touched upon. So it'll be very quick, and I'll do that. And then Kaliga will make a statement after I'm finished.
Great. And Chris is also here. Do you have a presentation as well, or are you just going to make a statement?
Just a statement testimony for me. Thanks, council member.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Roberta Hankton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Lara and Commissioner Woods. I'm Roberta Hankton. I live at 45 Burnett Street in Jamaica Plain, and I'm a proud member of the Friends of JP Dog Parks. This is our statement. We fully support the efforts of Councillors Lara and Arroyo, who have called for a minimum of one city-sponsored off-leash dog park per neighborhood in the city of Boston. And now Commissioner Woods too, thank you so much for what you said. And to repurpose underutilized city parcels whenever appropriate and possible. The population of dog owners in the city has significantly increased over the past few years, with well over 7,000 dogs currently licensed and many more unregistered. We like to see dog parks in neighborhoods throughout the city. Since Jamaica Plain has no appropriate city parcels, we request the city continue to support our efforts to establish dog parks on DCR land along the Southwest Corridor Park. So why do we want more dog parks in Boston, and more specifically in our neighborhood of Jamaica Plain? Well, first of all, Jamaica Plain has 1,093 licensed dogs as of 2021, which is the second highest number of dogs in any neighborhood in Boston. But we have no off-leash spaces for our dogs. Many dogs require a great deal of exercise, and dog owners look for ways to exercise and socialize their companions safely and conscientiously. Thirdly, a dog park is the safest solution to resolve complaints from residents who may not want to have encounters with dogs on or off leash. And having a fenced-in safe space will be beneficial for everyone in the community, not just dog owners. Next, understanding that there is limited space for designated dog parks, we also advocate for shared use space as appropriate. In addition to providing a safe environment for both dogs and people, dog parks also offer the following benefits. Dog parks are spaces for elderly and disabled individuals to exercise their dogs. Secondly, dog parks create opportunities for third spaces where folks who may not normally interact can meet, making the neighborhood a stronger and more vibrant environment. And thirdly, dog parks address a public health concern, which is the loneliness epidemic. We know that after the pandemic, many people continue to struggle to find connections, and dog parks enhance the sense of community. For all these reasons, dog parks will be a positive investment for the city. Each year, the need for dog parks continues to grow as more and more people adopt or acquire dogs. 2020 was a record-breaking year in which shelters actually ran out of animals to adopt out. The need has never been greater for safe, fenced-in areas where residents can exercise their closest companions. We are taxpayers, voters, and persons who contribute to the city budget through the purchase of our yearly dog licenses. We happily pay for playgrounds, athletic fields, tennis courts, and basketball courts, but we, your constituents, are still waiting for a critical need for dog parks to be met. Thank you very much for this time and for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Melissa, you have the floor. And I know that you are going to be accompanied by a presentation, and Megan has just pulled that up.
Yep, we're pulling that up now.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Melissa, I believe you're on mute.
Sorry. Okay, all right, so might be a little redundant. Sorry, it's going to be basically going over a lot of the information we've just shared with the statement. I'm not sure if I have control over the slide to advance this, so we could go to the next slide. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
just sharing next slide once you're ready to go.
Okay, great, thanks, sorry. So basically, we appreciate all the work that the city has already given us. Back in 2021, Councilor Arroyo called it the first dog park meeting that I attended, at least, hearing to discuss this. And we've really been encouraged by all the great strides that the Wu administration has made in supporting off-leash recreation space for dogs. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. I'm going to do this really fast. This is just a little quick overlay of all the efforts that we've been making in Jamaica Plain for the last, it's actually gone on for over 20 years. The Friends of JP Dog Parks has been fighting for off-leash designated spaces as well as shared use spaces in Jamaica Plain. We have had a series of setbacks, but we have been really encouraged recently that things are starting to move in the right direction. But in the past, we've asked for dog parks along the Southwest Corridor, and unfortunately, there was a lot of public support for it, but it was abandoned. A lot of these efforts were abandoned when a few abutters were vocal in their dissent. So it's been a frustrating process for us, and we're glad that finally we're getting some support from both the city and the state to address this concern. I think as Roberta mentioned earlier, it's really a safety concern for both the public as well as our pups. We want to make sure that everybody's safe, that we have a safe area, that especially dogs who are young and not trained well won't run into the street and get hurt if they're chasing a ball, and we certainly don't want anybody to get injured who happens to come into an area where there's dogs playing. So I think it's a public safety concern that we all want to make sure everybody's safe and address the needs for both dog owners as well as the general public. Okay, next slide. All right, so this is I did have another slide in there that just said that we wanted to thank everybody for the efforts that we were seeing in the last couple of years. We have recently, after a robust public survey and public meetings, we were finally approved for our first Jamaica Plain Dog Park, which will be a small one over at Flaherty Playground in the redesign, and we're very grateful for that. Unfortunately, it's one small dog park, and we have so many dogs in Jamaica Plain that we really are advocating for additional shared space or designated spaces in JP. Unfortunately, the specific problem we find in our community is that there are no available parcels that are city-owned for utilizing to become dog parks. We're sort of overdeveloped here in JP, as a lot of people know. So we're asking for the city to work with the state, and it looks like that's happening, to sort of determine other areas along the Southwest Corridor Park especially, and also in Franklin Park, which is city-owned, but that's a ways off before we can get something there. Also, we've looked at the Green Dog program over in Brookline. They have been running that program for over 12 years now successfully. While they may have some, small issues that they've had to work out over the years, it's overall very successful, and we support some sort of hybrid model that combines both shared use space, such as on athletic fields that are not used during the winter time, with having a shared space for dogs as well as for athletics. So I think that the city is unique in the sense that we have a lot of green space, but we don't have a lot of green space that is available for dog parks. So having sort of an option to negotiate some sort of share program would be really helpful. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. And as Roberta already mentioned, there's many benefits for everyone with having dog parks. It builds community. It's a positive amenity. We find that a lot of people who are moving into the city for the first time are kind of surprised and shocked when they find out that there are no amenities for dogs and dog owners. So it's something that we think is really a great cities have great amenities, and I think this is one that people are craving. And it's also addresses safety concerns, obviously, and in mental health issues. It builds communities and helps people come out and socialize. Next slide. And we did a survey back in 2021, I think this was when we did a survey, and it shows that, you know, there was a great need for dog parks in Jamaica Plain especially, but also throughout the city. So we are continuing to not only support dog parks in JP, but also throughout the city, Hyde Park, West Roxbury, Dorchester. All these communities have dogs, all these communities have needs. Next slide, please. Without official dog parks, we've run into some issues, not just safety issues where dogs might run away, but also we've had issues with needles and human waste being found especially down along the Southwest Corridor Park, where dogs have been sickened. And so we think that having designated spaces for dog parks would help address that issue. And we could, you know, the Friends of JP Dog Parks are committed to, street work outside, are committed to making sure that we, let me ask you. And, there is street work outside of my house right now. So this is one area that we think would be an ideal location. It was brought up by the DCR back, I think it was 2018. And we still use this as a dog park today. And it would be an easy fix to have some fencing up and make it a safe area. Next slide. Okay, you can go on. That's just me. Next slide. This is it. This is why we do this. We love our fur babies, and we are very appreciative of all the work that City Councilor Laura and City Councilor Arroyo have done, and as well as City Councilor Ed Flynn has in supporting dog parks, and also Commissioner Woods. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for your presentation. Kalika, you now have the floor.
Hi, Kendra, and hi, Commissioner. I have a unique perspective. I was born in Boston. I just turned 68 years old, and I remember, and I've lived in Roxbury, South End, and now JP. And I remember how dangerous some parks were, especially when I was young and in the 70s. And when people acquired more dogs and they started using Boston parks, crime went down in the parks because there would often be, there still is, but open drug deals, broken glass everywhere, fights, even knife fights. I saw them as a young person. And dogs coming into a park made a big difference. And that's one of the benefits. I have a unique perspective because I've been an RN in Boston I just hit the 46-year mark on that. And I've also had a pet care business since 1990. Officially, I kind of was doing it before that. So I would be a night nurse and run out and take care of animals after a 12-hour shift. But I'm a dog trainer and an RN. And I sent Kendra 11 articles that were lay articles, but based on great studies from universities around the country, including here in the Boston area, that show the benefits of dog parks to people. People exercising their dogs, but even people watching dogs at play releases serotonin and endorphins, believe it or not. So it's very healthy for people in the dog park, exercising their dogs and without. And as a trainer, I can tell you that dog parks, that exercise dogs are better behaved dogs. So if people are afraid of dogs, even they should want dog parks, because it's going to make the dogs who are walking by them on leash better behaved because they have gotten their exercise. And so there are benefits that have been researched. Another benefit to the city is that if we want to retain young professionals, then as Roberta said in the statement, as Melissa has pointed out, more and more people are acquiring dogs, especially during COVID, and it's not going down. That number is going up. And if we want to retain young professionals, they come home to their furry family members. And the cats can stay in the house and you play with them, but the dogs need to go out. So we need dog parks if we want to retain young professionals in Boston. And it's another added benefit to have dog parks. Boston is 75th or worse in dog amenities, and I believe Mayor Wu is trying hard, because she said there should be a dog park in every neighborhood, at least one, to rectify that, but we're not there yet. We are friends of JP dog parks, and we don't have any more city spaces that would be suitable for a dog park. Mariama Hammond White had promised that she would help us work with the DCR to try and make it happen. We hope counselors will help too, that city officials will help them, us in our quest to get some Southwest Corridor Park, because it runs the length of JP land, and a lot of land would be suitable. And we are also, as Melissa pointed out, advocating for dog parks citywide. And Friends of JP Dog Parks has been around for more than 20 years. And we have done the research. We actually have researched everything from benefits of dog parks to size and shape of dog parks and different types of dog parks, to even surfaces that should be for the ground surface for dog parks and drainage and things. So we want to work with the city, all over the city, not just for JP, but we definitely need more dog parks. I don't know if it was pointed out because I couldn't get into the Zoom, but as a single zip code, we have the most registered dogs in JP. But we really want to help Boston come into the 21st century when it comes to having dog amenities. So we're willing to work with the city on any level and to be part of the discussion, and we're very proactive, obviously, to have more dog parks and to make them safe and happy places for the city. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Kalika. I want to acknowledge that we have been joined by my council colleague and co-sponsor, Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor for any opening statements.
Thank you. Sorry, took me a little bit to get logged on. I just want to thank all the advocates for continuing to push for this. I personally have had a dog, or now in this case, multiple dogs in my life since I was maybe like 7, 8 years old. And so dog parks were something I discovered when I was visiting my godfather in South Boston. Actually, I realized I had a dog park right there on First Street. And I started to bring, at the time, what was a puppy there, and realized really quickly why these are so essential to the community. I met neighbors who I didn't know before that. We had conversations. I would probably say it's probably similar to a playground in the way that parents meet other parents and have other conversations, but it was actually very community building. It was a safety feature because you had people present at all times of the day, minus, I think it closes at 8 p.m. So after it closed, nobody was there, obviously. But during the day, there was a constant presence of eyes and ears. And so there was a lot of added and additional benefits. But beyond all of that, it was incredibly healthy for my dog. And I think from the standpoint of trying to make a city that is beneficial to the folks who live in it, making sure that the city is beneficial also to the pets that are essentially family to the folks that live in our neighborhoods is an essential and crucial part of building that city. And so it's my hope that as we look at this, I live now and have lived in the southern part of the city. So I'm up in Hyde Park. I was in Rosendale for a little bit. We don't have anywhere we can go within our own neighborhoods or within walking distance without having to put a dog in a car and go somewhere else. And there's I think one of the things I kind of want to address in this very not so brief opening statement is that there's this idea that dog parks are elitist or are for a specific kind of community. And the way to ensure that is to ensure that you can't actually reach one within your neighborhood without getting into a car or having to go somewhere. And so making sure that we have these in a place where neighborhood folks can bring their dogs, I think you'll see not just the added benefits for those community members, but I also still get complaints about, oh, there's dogs in this park, there's dogs in that park. And part of the problem here is unless you create a solution, you will continue to have folks who want to do off-leash where they're not allowed to do off-leash. You will continue to have those issues until you actually create alternative methods for them. And I've been pushing for this for a long time. I think I heard earlier someone mentioned DCR and trying to push DCR. In Hyde Park specifically, I think 70-something% of our land is DCR land. And so maybe working in some kind of partnership where we split costs or we split who manages it or we do something along those lines makes that easier for them to agree to. But I would love to see us continue to build these parks out so that every neighborhood has multiple of these, not just one of these. So thank you, everybody, for continuing to push. I'm here till January, and I'll continue to push as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor Arroyo. So we are going to start with questions, both for the administration and the community panelists, and we're going to do that in the order of arrival.
Councilmember Laura, would I still have a chance to testify?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. There you are. For some reason, your screen disappeared from in front of me. Please, you have the floor.
No worries at all. I figured it was a Zoom funness. Well, just first, I wanted to thank Councilmember Arroyo. We've known each other for a little while, and this truly is an equity issue. And the only way to address this is an equity lens. So I want to make sure that centering my testimony on that is critical for me. My name is Chris Arena. My pronouns are he, him. I currently live on Dana Road in West Roxbury, but I've lived all amongst the city. First, I want to thank the council and share my gratitude for you being here and my fellow panelists for your testimony. I also want to send a special thanks to Councilmember Lara and Arroyo. Councilmember Lara is my council member, and I'm grateful that you've sponsored this hearing. As well as Councilor Flynn and Murphy for attending this meeting. I know your advocacy has been steadfast. Definitely want to say a huge thanks to Ryan. We've worked together over the years, for the past 6 years, on a variety of advocacy efforts across the city. I know how deeply you are committed to this effort. And finally, I want to thank Mayor Wu for her steeled support for animal rights throughout our city. So who am I? For the last 12 years, I've been a brand strategist and marketer by day, and a lifelong community activist by night. I moved to Boston in fall 2017, and I did feel a deep sense of shock that Melissa was talking about. Boston severely lagged behind the dog park amenities I was offered as a resident of Washington, D.C., where there was a dog park in nearly every neighborhood, and there were less dogs in the city of Washington, D.C. than there were here. So I was shocked to see that type of lack of commitment to active green spaces. I'm a 33-year-old homeowner in West Roxbury where I live with my wife and our 2 dogs, Joy and May, and our happy little interracial family in the woods of West Roxbury. I've been advocating for this need since 2017 when I first organized a grassroots campaign for a dog park in Alston, because I moved to the city and I saw so many people walking around with dogs, sharing the spaces, a lot of the tensions and the trauma that can come from that, and it just didn't feel right. So at the time, as a renter in Alston, I worked painstakingly to build a 300-person list, gather signatures at events, and go to my council member at the time, Mark Siomo, that the demand existed. This was a true problem, and I gathered signatures and testimony from dog owners, now helpless they felt. I spoke throughout the neighborhood at different events, and I even went to informal dog meetups at Bringer Park and other city-owned land. And ultimately, in Councilmember Braden's election, I saw an advocate, and we were able to make some really positive strides. From there, through this advocacy, our group of Alston Dog Park advocates worked with developers and DCR on a potential riverfront site. We did site visits, we did biological site surveys, and I even served on several IAGs, always hoping a developer would be willing to use their private land purchase for some partial public good, which always ended up remaining a private dog run in their development. That, again, as Ricardo had spoken of, just perpetuates that stereotypical elitism of a closed door dog park, which really doesn't do any benefit to our public good, and it just creates a further divide and inequity. Finally, I saw some level of success, and our group saw some level of success after years of fighting when Smith Field was redesigned. We activated to get 2 wonderful dog parks. I would argue the best dog parks in the city because of the input of the community, which are the Smithfield dog parks in Alston on Western Avenue. They're very underknown. They're hidden in the back of the park. The signage is not great, but we've got them, and they're really fantastic. Then, as the story oldest time, I eventually got pushed out of the neighborhood in Alston, priced out, when I wanted to buy my first condo with my wife. And we fortunately found a place in Roslindale where I met Ricardo and continued the fight in that neighborhood. I served on the Friends of Healy Field. We did a site review with Ryan in Boston Parks and Kat, and came out a bunch of times thinking, how could we adaptively reuse the ball fields in the off season? Can we close them up and use them as dog parks when there's no kids playing on the field, and then raise funds to make the ball fields better for the next season, right? So adaptively reusing the space that we already had. Great conversations were had. Ryan was really a huge advocate for that kind of change, and Ricardo was as well. Ultimately, that work led to me being elected by the mayor, Mayor Walsh at the time, as a commissioner on the Animal Commission in 2019, where I served countless homeless dogs and countless advocacy positions. Finally, my experience that lends to this testimony is, since 2018, I have fostered with several community organizations, including Last Hope Canine, Great Dog Rescue New England, and I've worked with Animal Control on helping save some of their most challenging dogs. My wife and I have helped 60 plus dogs find their forever homes, which is heartbreaking every time one comes through, but we get to help them with trauma response and separation anxiety and aggression, and we get to help them live the life they deserve to live. So in all that experience with dogs, as well as being a dog owner for the 33 years of my life, and owner is kind of a weird statement, but living with dogs for the 33 years of my life, what have I seen? Number one, demand is going up. There are so many more houses in Boston that have dogs than the 11,200 registered with Animal Control. I know this, Animal Control knows this, we know this on the Animal Control Commission. It's an ongoing challenge for Animal Control community to register dogs, because if dogs aren't registered and there's an incident or a missing dog, it's that much harder to get them home where they belong. So first off, that's the one thing I've recognized. Second, and this is really difficult, but thanks to financial challenges of inflation and macroeconomic strife, families who adopted in the pandemic 3 years ago are having more and more trouble keeping up with their pets' costs and needs. Cost of living has gone up, cost of food has gone up, cost of boarding has gone up. And many of those families were doing economically better in 2021 and 2022 than they are in 2023. Dogs are being returned to shelters, rescues in the city at a heartbreaking, alarming rate. All while they still get shipped up from southern states like Arkansas, Alabama, and Louisiana, as well as international destinations like Puerto Rico, by the carload weekly. We're getting many, many dogs that have a need and can't fit that need or find that need in the South. I know with my rescue, my current rescue, Great Dog Rescue New England, where I'm a foster dad, there's still 10 dogs a week coming up here every single week looking for a home. It's very difficult to meet the need. And again, Animal Control finds many strays and many surrenders, and it's just heartbreaking every time. And finally, the one thing that we've seen is more and more conflict is happening at parks as passive recreation is meeting irresponsible dog ownership. There are very few irresponsible dog owners. But again, it only takes one irresponsible dog owner and one person who is deathly afraid for friction to create community fraying. So why dog parks? Why is dog parks the solution? There's a million different things we could think of that would solve this problem, but I want to talk to a couple of data points. Number one, dog parks get dogs registered. It is a centralized space away from off-leash spaces where our city can go. Our commissioners, our animal control officers can go to those places, identify needs, and serve the resident populations. One of the really cool things about our animal control that people might not know is that they offer free and low cost veterinary services. Well, it's very hard to figure out who needs those services if they can't go door to door knocking on every one of the residents in the city's doors. But if the dog parks exist, like Ricardo had talked about earlier, as an equitable place where anyone from the neighborhood can go, animal control can meet them there to figure out their needs. Number 2, physical exercise for dogs and their people reduces stress, obesity, and increases mental stimulation. Anyone who's been around a dog for an hour knows that it reduces anxiety, and anyone who knows about socializing knows that it reduces aggression to a point. And that's data from the Association for Pet Obesity Prevention. Second, it's really important that dog parks become connectors of communities because everyone picks up poop. I can't overstate this. Regardless of your socioeconomic status, you're going to get a bag, you're going to pick up the poop, you're going to throw it away. So it really does break down those barriers. You don't have to tell your income when you walk into a dog park. You don't have to talk about how late you were on rent this week. You don't have to talk about the struggles that you have. It's just there for a moment to walk away from life and enjoy a happy dog. Research published in the journal Frontiers in Veterinary Science also suggests that spending quality time with dogs through activities like visiting dog parks can strengthen the bond between owners and their pets. So you get deeper connections. I know I've seen it a million times how much Ricardo loves his dogs. I love my dogs, but I'm always trying to find ways to deepen our bond and give them the quality of life they deserve. Additionally, it helps dogs learn social cues by having a dog park. They're able to see, especially if you bring a puppy to a park, they're able to see what kind of behaviors are acceptable. It creates a society for them instead of letting them live in isolation. Also, it works for people like that way too. You know, if I go to a dog park and there's 10 other dog owners there and I strike up a conversation, I can find a way to find a new friend to trade off dog sitting while we both have work trips. In 1 week, I can watch their dog, and the next week they can watch mine. It creates those deeper community ties. A survey conducted by the Trust for Public Land found that 88% of dog park users felt a stronger sense of community after visiting a dog park. If the city council isn't aiming for a stronger sense of community, I don't know what we're aiming for. That's our number one goal. It's also, like I mentioned before, an equity issue. So millennials and Gen Z want this public good, and they're showing so with their home buying dollars. That same report from the Trust for Public Lands stated that dog parks can contribute to an increase in property values the second they're created in surrounding neighborhoods. It seems to me a major issue if we don't have dog parks in Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Roxbury, but we have them in the South End and some other more affluent neighborhoods. It's saying that we as a city are deciding the haves and the have-nots through their property values. If we're able to give people in Mattapan, Mattapan, Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, all of the western parts of the city, an opportunity to increase their home values, and also meet that public need, you're getting a win-win. Additionally, I think someone mentioned the loneliness epidemic, which is absolutely crucial to talk about. According to Gallup research released in April, we are in the longest period of national loneliness in recorded history in the last 3 years. For example, young adults under the age of 30 and those in lower income households earning less than $24,000 per year suffer higher levels of daily loneliness than the oldest population and their higher income counterparts. Councilmember Flynn, I saw that you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't want to ask a question without getting the approval from the chair first.
I'm going to give Chris a moment to finish up his statement, and then we're going to go to questions from the council for the panelists.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I've got about a minute left, and it's pretty quick. Finally, some of my stories of dog parks reflect a lot of the data that I've talked about. I met friends to shoot hoops with. I built a routine. I built connections. I felt that deep sense of belonging to my community. And I don't feel that now. And I'll talk about that just to close up my testimony in a second as I've moved to West Roxbury. While dog parks offer numerous benefits, it's very important for me to close off with this section it's not all dogs may enjoy or thrive in this environment, and that's perfectly fine. This policy is not a silver bullet, as very few policies are. But having more dog parks, at least one in every neighborhood, with a prioritization on the southern parts of the city and the western parts, provides innumerable benefits to our communities. I might just be a sample size of an N of 1, but as a brand strategist, we still love qualitative data. So here's how my story goes these days. I own a beautiful, dreamy bungalow in West Roxbury in the Grove, which for anyone who knows the Grove, it's a very strange neighborhood. I've never felt more isolated from my community. We bought about almost 2 years ago now. We have a quarter of an acre of land, and it feels like we live in the woods of Vermont. There's nowhere a dog can go within a 45-minute walk of me. My oldest dog is more agitated. She barks at home all of the time. I have a neighbor who actively does not like dogs, leading to natural tension. And I see the dogs in my neighborhood at a passing glance, but building rapport is significantly more challenging, especially as we get into the isolating cold winter months. Dog parks on the western half of the city don't exist. Other than Smithfield, thank God. So I'll drive to Dedham or Smithfield, I'll get in my car, I'll create wasteful emissions and miss the chance to spend dollars in my own neighborhood and meet my own neighbors to solve a need. If we adaptively reuse our land, we can reap all the benefits of a connected community and happier pups, and we can have multi-generational community friendships bubbling up from a City of Boston sponsored initiative for the dogs. So, in closing, I want to close by offering a round of applause for the Boston City Council and calling for this meeting. I'm so grateful to be here. I know it's been a doggone rough day in scheduling this meeting, but I hope we, the responsible dog families of the city, aren't barking up the wrong tree. It doesn't take Sherlock Bones to see that our dogs are in a bit of a rough pooch lately. I know Kendra's loving this. Don't let this be just another day at the POFIS, please. Work with the community, meet the moment, and meet our need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. Oh, that was incredible.
I figured you would like that.
Yes. We are going to start from questions from my council colleagues, both for the community panelists and the administration. In the order of arrival, I believe President Flynn was here first. Councilor Murphy, do I have that correct?
That's fine, yeah. I'm pretty sure he was, yes.
President Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the panel as well. I guess my question, maybe to Commissioner Woods. Oh, thank you, Commissioner Woods, and the Parks team as well, the environmental team. My question to Commissioner Woods: if we implement off-leash dog parks, and unfortunately, if there is an incident where someone is bitten by a dog, is the City of Boston responsible for dealing with any legal issues, whether it's taken to court or not? I just want to get Ryan Woods. What's your view on that, based on your experience, or someone else in the Parks team, I guess?
Yes, currently we try to have all of our dog recreation space fenced in, because that way it's sanctioned. With the off-leash areas in parks, the city would be liable and it would go through the legal process. But we've had a couple kids fall in the outfields during baseball games because holes might have been dug. We had somebody break their collarbone. We've also at Blackstone last year, there was a group that met in, it wasn't a sanctioned off-space dog park, but a dog off-leash ran into the middle of Washington Street and unfortunately lost their life just because it wasn't in an area that was controlled with a fence. So there are liabilities around it, certainly.
If we move forward in this direction with off-leash dog parks, do you have to factor that insurance and legal issues in as you make plans, infrastructure plans, that we need to, whether or not it's increase the insurance that the city needs on these issues? Is that because we don't have off-leash dog parks, would we have to increase the amount of insurance that we have?
I think we want to continue to, explore places where we could build off-leash dog areas where they can be, is a controlled area that can be sanctioned with fences and controls around it, and that's what we're looking forward to doing. We have been in contact with Partners in Brookline about what works and does not work about their off-leash dog program, and they've been very kind to share that with us. We also, the Friends of the Public Garden, are trying to get away from their pilot off-leash dog area for similar issues where somebody's dog that was normally on voice control was not on voice control on a given day, and an incident may have happened, plus the tens of thousands of dollars of re-aerating and seeding the panels as they move, just because we tend to lose the grass in that area. So in the master plan for Boston Common, is a proposed fenced-in dog recreation space.
Is there a plan? Is there a plan for off-leash a dog park at the public garden?
There is not a plan in the public garden. That just as a botanical garden. We don't permit events or anything in the garden, so there's not a plan for public garden.
Okay. If this were to happen, Ryan, and say it happened, you know, on a ball field or a football field or whatever, would you set aside funding so that the field could be fixed following the start of a new sports season?
So it's already occurring where, you know, there's, as everyone has testified, there is a lot more dogs than places to have them recreate. So people are using athletic fields currently. And we are trying our best to repair. I think the challenge is in the off season to use it as a dog recreation space, but then you would need that time to reestablish the grass of, you know, 8 weeks to 12 weeks to regrow it. So when is the off season? You know, if the off season goes until April 1st, then we need to shut down April 1st in May to open it in June, and then we're missing out on the athletic season. So if there is that time in the off season to remediate or fix these things, we will have to take the panel offline or the park offline for, you know, at least 2 months or so to do repairs if needed. If it's full-on lawn restoration, like that's what the Friends of the Public Garden do. They do on full-on panel restoration because of the amount of usage.
Are you willing to? Is the city willing to shut down a sports field where kids play sports so that we can provide more accommodations for off-leash dog parks?
Our preference right now is certainly to try to find spaces in our parks that could be repurposed. Maybe something as a field that might not be used anymore as such a field, as things evolve over time, and just try to have formalized dog recreation spaces with fencing and proper drainage, as was mentioned, shade. But to the Friends point, Friends of Dog Parks point, we like dog parks, dog recreation spaces. They bring the community together in certain areas. There is that camaraderie, and they are eyes and ears. Dog owners are in our parks morning, noon, and night and can help report broken glass, graffiti, issues of that. So it is certainly welcome. The challenge is just trying to find, you know, a space that's right there that's not too close to an abutter's window, whether it's barking or sometimes the smells that may come in the heat of August or September these days. But, you know, finding that right place that works for all or most.
So how are you going to prepare, Ryan, for an off-leash dog park, and then at the same time the next morning or the next evening or afternoon, you might have a baseball game or a kid's soccer game? How are we going to prepare that? I know you're saying that you're going to have designated off-leash dog spaces, which sounds good in reality, but how are you going to prepare when dogs are off-leash and are on fields that kids are using at the same time, or you know, the following day rather?
The athletic fields are not as a sanctioned area, a dog recreation space. So that is not something that we have contemplated right now, just because of all the factors that goes in for repairs and injuries and liabilities. We're really looking for places that can be separate from, you know, say the outfield of a baseball field, or as we're seeing a lot, artificial turf now. We're seeing a lot of dog owners use artificial turf, for example, in Dorchester at Garvey Park, with a brand new dog space, but people would rather use the larger artificial turf, and it just doesn't drain as well. And most dog owners are responsible. If there are a few that may spoil it, you know, the feces or something does not go anywhere on artificial turf. It doesn't decompose as much. It's there. So we're really right now just focused on areas that are away from athletic.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Flynn. And I just wanted to clarify, because I see that Kaliga and Chris both have their hands up, and I will give you an opportunity to kind of answer that. A lot of the complications that Commissioner Woods was referencing are for are in the absence of fenced-in dog parks, and so they're not complications when there are fenced-in dog parks. There are complications that currently exist because they are not fenced in. That we are looking for fenced-in areas that are specific to be used for off-leash dogs. And the reason why I say that is I think, and I'll have some questions about that as we move on, particularly about the Brookline model, is that I share some of President Flynn's concern about shared space. Like if we move into the Brookline model where we're kind of like off-leash dog hours at this time, and then there, a lot of the complications that President Flynn is bringing up and Commissioner Woods is bringing up make it a little bit more difficult for us just because of the scale of our city. Brookline is much smaller and much more well-resourced than we are. And so we are looking specifically to have fenced-in areas for off-leash dogs. I think that is one of the best ways that it could work here in the city, but that we're trying to avoid all of the liability by making it dog-only areas, basically. Chris, I saw that your hand went down. Kalika, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the terminology as Kendra was doing. Councilor Flynn, President Flynn, when you say off-leash dog parks usually refers to a fenced-in area where dogs can play off-leash. You are talking, I think, about shared space use for dog parks, whereas it's an athletic field in season and a dog park off-season. And so those are different things. They are not fenced in. And Brookline does have that model, and it's been fairly successful. Another thing is that dog parks usually have rules, and that when people go into dog parks, that means that they are acquiescent to keep the place clean, to restrain, you can't refrain, but restrain barking, and that they are responsible if another dog bites a human or another dog. So that is part of the rules. They're usually posted in a fenced-in dog park. And I'm not as familiar, although Friends of JP Dog Parks has been in communication with other communities that have off-leash spaces. And there are rules to that too. And often you have to pay a fee. I know Brookline does to use it, and you have to acquiesce also that you're going to be responsible if your dog does bite another dog or another person. So those are the rules for any dog park. And also another interesting thing, and I don't know if Christopher touched on that, but dog owners are very responsible. And if a dog owner comes into either a shared space dog park or a fenced-in dog park, and their dog is aggressive, their dog is not neutered, and that's causing a problem because sometimes the scent of an unneutered male or female causes arousal even in dogs that have been neutered, then that's violating the rules. And the other dog, or if they don't pick up after their dog, the other dog owners actually police the place and say, you can't be in here with your dog, because it's usually a human issue, by the way, not a dog issue. But they tell them, you can't, this is not, you're not part of the dog community if you're not going to be a good part of the dog community here. And that's another thing also that Commissioner Woods touched on, is that dog people using parks, even on leash, walking through parks, often, as I had said, deter crime or find things that are wrong. There's a lot of broken glass over here. There's people that have put up tents in this park, and they let people know what's going on. So they are part of the community in keeping all of the community safe in our parks.
Thank you so much. All. So we're going to move on to Councilor at Large Erin Murphy for questions. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Erin Murphy here, Councilor Murphy. Dog owner, 2 dogs. Love when I can take my dogs for walks. A few things I have for Commissioner Woods. how many dogs are registered? I think that's a very equity issue here. A lot of JP dogs, I'm happy to hear that a lot of dog owners in Jamaica Plain do register their dogs, but do we have from animal control, does Alexis know how many closely? I know we don't know every house, what's in every house, but the percentage of dogs in the city of Boston that are actually registered, in which neighborhoods have the most dogs?
Yes, we have that. I can provide it. I know it's just over 10,000, but that is a small number of the total dog population that we know exists in the city of Boston
Right.
that are registered.
That a very small percentage of dog owners. And many people I talk to don't even realize that they need to. So it's not about not being a responsible dog owner. For many people, they don't even realize that's something they should do. A couple months ago, Council President Flynn hosted a community meeting at the M Street Park because there had been an incident with a child and a dog, and yourself and Alexis were there, and you gave a lot of good information and answered a lot of questions to the dog owners who, you know, because there are several dog parks, right? And when we're talking about dog parks that are built and maintained by the city, there's, you know, there can't be grass, there's all these reasons. So environmental here, actually, Kat, you probably have some input on that also, that many of the dog owners were saying, you know, they like that park there because there's grass and their dog likes grass more, but we know that the city owned and maintained dog parks have different types of like drainage for environmental reasons. So would like you to just kind of touch on that, and obviously understand myself, but if there is anyone listening, not sure, I wish more of my colleagues were here during the participatory budget. I have to say my big takeaway the first year was that JP loves their dogs and wants more dog parks. It was, you definitely had the most participation in the budget season. So do wish that more people on the council were here, because if this will need to come to a vote, and especially using city-owned land to really understand the need. But if Commissioner Woods, if you could just touch on the difference between what a dog park is and what this vision for like more unleashed dog areas across the city would be, and if we have any right now. I know there are places where people do it and it's kind of controlled and okay, like if you go early behind, you know, Castle Island, you'll see. If you go certain times to the Common, you mentioned it, there are definitely spots. And just before, I'll quickly say, during the pandemic also, when we're talking about sharing spaces, when the sports were just completely shut down for that long period of time, near where I live, we would go across to Hemi Park, and it was okay, right? And a lot of neighbors you met for the first time, and a lot of people were getting what we still call our COVID puppies, right? Our dogs, and they were coming to the park. And then once flag football started up again and the softball season started, there was definitely a struggle between the dog owners feeling as though, well, this has become our space, and then knowing that now that COVID's over and these parks have been built and, you know, licensed for different use. So if you could touch on those issues, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, a typical dog park right now is costing us around $300,000. And if you look at some of the more recent ones, as was mentioned by Christopher, that we did at Smithfield, it is great. It has doggy bowls, has water, has shade, canopy coverage, does have areas of stone dust and pea stone for better drainage, has a double fence, which I think a lot of dog owners would appreciate, having that double fencing so you get into the dog park area, but then have another layer of protection so they're not going out. So if you haven't checked that one out, it was done well. I think a lot of perception from the layperson is, how come we don't just put a fence over here in the corner on this grass area and fence that in? And, you know, it's not that easy. As I mentioned, the Friends of the Public Garden, you know, it's about $10,000 every time they do a panel over, and they're rotating every 3 times a year or so, every 4 to 5 months, they rotate to a new panel in the common, and then they restore the other one. So it's just constantly going in with that investment on regular grass and for proper drainage for reasons. So we're just trying to find the right areas in our public spaces And as Kaliga had mentioned, our Reverend Mariama White Hammond has been working very closely with Brian Arrigo, who's the DCR commissioner, who seems to be more open than previous DCR commissioners on welcoming this possibility. But again, it is getting funding in their budget and going through a design process. But as Melissa pointed out in the presentation, there is already a starting point. Work has been done. People have done preliminary design work. So hopefully that will work quicker. But Kat, do you have more on the environmental side you want to weigh in on?
Yeah, I know that obviously there's sort of that question that you just brought up, Counselor, about sort of the pea gravel and sort of some of the more like stone-based solutions that we tend to advise for versus having grass. It's really from a maintenance standpoint, grass is delicate. It's a living, breathing organism. And so a dog park is really high usage. It's like if you were playing a football game all the time. And I think the other challenge is that, you know, when sometimes we have really heavy rainfall, then that can also have the same effect that we see in our athletic fields, where there might be a period of time where you can't use the dog park because it's going to kick up the sod and kick up the dirt. It's also just really, really hard on most grass mixes just because of the high amount of nitrogen in dog urine. It just is really, really hard on the grass. And so for those infiltration issues, as well as just the likelihood of the grass being able to sort of make it, especially given how variable some of our rainfall has been, especially this season. This has been a wet summer. There's a lot of reasons why we tend to really just go for the pea gravel, because it's just something that's more likely to last and is much easier to maintain. And as Ryan mentioned, some of the challenges around sort of artificial turf are there. And I also know that there are many reasons why people have a lot of opinions and thoughts about artificial turf writ large. So that also isn't necessarily a strong solution when it comes to dog parks, and is why we tend to do the pea gravel.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Just want to make sure that, you know, people understand the restraints we do have and understand the, you know, the need here. So just thank you for having this hearing, Councilor Lara.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Councilor Murphy, for being here. I share, you know, in the lament of not having more of our council colleagues here, just because we are aiming to have one in every single neighborhood. And I think particularly for the district councilors, it's an issue that will, like I said, continue to be evergreen in our neighborhoods as we have this conversation. I am going to move into asking my questions. And so I know that we've gotten a little bit in the weeds in terms of what the dog parks look like, what are they going to do? And, you know, mostly it's our responsibility as councilors just to think about the impact that it's going to have and what it's going to look like in our neighborhoods. But I want to zoom out a little bit. So the goal is that we want to have at least one off-leash dog park in every neighborhood. If we're saying that we have 13 neighborhoods in the city, Commissioner Woods, how many of those neighborhoods already have their own off-leash dog park, or one that is being planned to be built out?
There is right now 2 in Dorchester, 1 in South End, 1 in the North End, 1 in Brighton, 1 in Fort Point, A Street that we inherited. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different neighborhoods have one, and the Boston Common has the pilot.
Great.
And we characterize neighborhoods even larger, council to 21.
21. Okay, beautiful. So out of 21, we have 6. And Flaherty Playground is coming. Jamaica Plain, I know, is not there yet, but there's one coming.
We hope.
Yeah, well, as long as I'm here, we'll keep fighting that fight. So there is a lot of need, basically. We have a very small number of off-leash dog parks in reference to how many actual neighborhoods we have in the city. So this conversation is specifically about wanting to have a conversation about how do we use land that the city already owns to prioritize it for off-leash dog parks. So there are 2 things that I think we have to consider when we're looking at the land audit. One is the size, that we're looking at, you know, 7,500 is the size of the one at Flaherty, but that's too small. We're actually looking at 10,000 square feet minimum in terms of what we need for the off-leash dog park. So one of my questions, particularly about the land audit, is a lot of the plots are being identified as that have high opportunity for a robust community planning process. Who is managing that community planning process? Because if there is a plan to build housing on some of these plots of land, there are plans that are currently underway for the land audit, but there are a number of these sites, 261 of them to be exact, which is about 21% of all of the parcels in the land audit, present an opportunity for a robust community planning process about what we could use them for in the future. And I think that some of those outcomes could be off-leash dog parks in these neighborhoods. But who is managing that community process, and when does it begin? Has it already started? And how do we make sure that people's dog owners and just people who live with animals in particular have their voice heard in this process?
So speaking for the Parks Department has our own parcel priority process where we did engagement for 2 years where residents were able to let us know of all these parcels that are in their neighborhoods, whether they're privately owned, publicly owned, that might be great places to be permanently protected to parkland. So we have a list of those and try to prioritize. Some of them may have to be acquired by buying them off of a property owner, and some of them may be owned by Sheila Dillon, and they might be Mayor's Office of Housing that could be transferred. So that is something we have reached out to Sheila and her team and said, of your properties, are there any that you're not planning on developing on, or maybe that weird shape, to your point, Councilor, may work for a dog recreation space? Is there a direct immediate abutter right there whose windows may be connected to this dog park, or the space that could be potentially a dog park? So looking at from that angle. There's parcels at one by Geneva that was owned by Mayor's Office of Housing. We were going in to make it a park, and we heard from the community that they wanted it to be more of a community center and have the senior center there near the Burke High School and the senior center that's across the street. So working on, trying to find out how we can acquire these. It's much easier if it is a city agency that owns it, whether it be BPDA or Mayor's Office of Housing transferring it versus going through the acquisition, which consists of appraisals and surveys and finding money and going to CPA, hopefully for some more money to acquire this land. So it's a longer process, but Parks has their own parcel priority program in place.
So does every city every city department have their own plan for robust community engagement about how to use these empty parcels? There is not like a collective process?
I can't speak to what the other departments do. I know, for example, Sheila Dillon's team, they have plans for theirs and they go through, but I don't know if EPDA or if Public Works owns some of the parcels, if they have different planning models. Ours is more just to collect from the public. What do you see out there, whether we own it or not, the Parks Department? What could be a space that could be permanently protected to be Article 97 parkland in perpetuity?
These sites that have, oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to add in some of that is the function of the Planning Advisory Council, I believe, which obviously is relatively recent and has just gotten started up. But part of that is about trying to align more strongly across cabinet strategies around things like capital planning or disposition of land. My understanding is that land audit was both Mayor's Office of Housing parcels, and they have the bulk majority of the housing. It used to be the Department of Neighborhood Development, and so that open space portion, I think, was more strongly hinted at, but it's still there with the Grow Boston program and the way that they use their vacant land, in particular for community gardens as well. There is a really strong collaborative partnership, I think, where they approach us often if they see a parcel where they think, oh, we don't think that this is necessarily a good fit for housing development. What we often will look for is the size, whether or not it has frontage on multiple streets, i.e. could it be entered from multiple different locations versus, being at the end of like a cul-de-sac. And then certainly for dog parks, some of what we're looking at, as Ryan hinted at, is whether or not there's an immediate abutter. Is it we try to stay at least 100 feet away from an immediate abutter at least. Have it be at least 10,000 square feet rather than the 7,500 square feet that's been mentioned. But also that it's on level ground, just because that allows for better drainage. We also want to look at whether or not there are trees on the site, because obviously we want to keep any dog park far away from existing trees so that we can preserve that canopy, but also make sure that those trees aren't going to be negatively impacted, because their root systems go wide. So you have to make sure to give them a solid amount of clearance. And so those, I would say that that's some of the function of the Planning Advisory Council, though, is really to have some of these efforts dovetail more closely. The other piece is there is a team at the BPDA also thinking about how we grow open space as we grow as a city. So recognizing that as we add in population, we also need to be adding in open space. And so they are all dovetailing. It's sometimes the articulation gets a little challenging, and we're working out those gears.
Yeah, because I think that if we are going to conduct a citywide land audit, and then we're going to identify parcels that are ripe for community process in terms of informing what we use those parcels for, it's going to be really necessary for encouraging a proper community process that there's a streamlined process, right? That there is like public communication about like, we're moving through a community process about what to do with these lands, and a streamlined process so that people can participate into it. If every department is having a piecemeal process about what to do with their empty plots of land, then nobody is ever going to be able to figure out where to get plugged in to advocate for a dog park in their neighborhood, or if they can. And the reason why I bring that up is because there are at least, and obviously I'm the district counselor for my district, and so I pulled out from the land audit the things that were in my district specifically, but I think that we should look at this in every other neighborhood. Out of this list of identified parcels that are really available and present a high opportunity for like a community process, there are 8 between Jamaica Plain, Rosendale, and West Roxbury that are over 10,000 square feet, and they are owned by either the Public Works Department, the Boston Transportation Department, or BPS. If there is going to be a community process, right? We're in my district specifically, the conversation around having off-leash dog parks has really been centered around working with DCR because they have the land. But if we have 8 parcels of land that have been identified by the city as a high opportunity for community process, and all 8 of them are more than 10,000 square feet, then we need to know, and there's people in this neighborhood need to know what that community process looks like so that they can advocate for it. Because even though we know that DCR has much more land than we do, that doesn't mean that our hands are tied in the city as well, because we do have access to some of this. And so I think that it's really important for us to have a conversation about what this community process is going to be around development. And in the Planning Advisory Council, is that all going to live there? If that all lives there, that would be incredible, because it would be streamlined. It would be like a central body. People would know where to go. They would be devising, whatever it looks like. That would be great. But like you said, I'm not sure that we're really there. It doesn't feel like we're really there yet. Like, we have the land on it, but we don't really know how we're going to inform what we do with the parcels that don't already have a plan for them, because a lot of them do have plans. The ones that I'm referencing are ones that have high opportunity, no plan. Specifically for them in my district. So I would invite parks to take a look at what are other high opportunity parcels in the land audit in the other neighborhoods where we don't have off-leash dog parks that are over 10,000 square feet, see what city department owns them, and start a conversation about if they're willing to transfer them over to the department and what that would look like. Because if each off-leash dog park costs us $300,000, then that's also going to be a budgetary a consideration for the Boston City Council, that the council is going to have to add additional funds if it's not already there, right? Whether it be through the amendments or whether Commissioner Woods wants to make sure that it's there in the budget when it comes to us. There are going to be considerations that we're going to make. And I would like to see some sort of plan. Like, it would be incredibly helpful for us to say, we have this vision for the city that there's at least one off-leash dog park, and here is our plan for the next 10 years to make that happen. These are the parcels that are available. These are neighborhoods where there aren't any parcels available. So here's our plan to collaborate with DCR. There has to be something substantial that lets people know that we are actually moving towards that vision. And I think that this land audit and these parcels that are particularly identified for community process are ideal. Like Commissioner Wood said, some people in some neighborhoods might say, no, we want a community center. And some people in some neighborhoods might say they want a dog park, right? So we want to give the people in the neighborhoods what they want, but there has to be some kind of transparent, open process for people to be able to say what it is that they want to see there. Sorry, I know that was a long winded, just mostly because I wanted to wrap my head around what we were doing with the plots that were currently here. In addition to the one in Jamaica Plain, are there any other parcels that are being built out for off-leash dog parks across the city that are not happening, that are like in planning? Because I know Franklin Park Action Plan is one of them, and the Franklin Park Action Plan, as it moves through implementation, will have opportunity for more community input. So there's like a possibility that people might ask for one there. But is there anything else across the city that I'm missing?
Yeah, we have a running list in here that we're looking at. The community has advocated hard at Hardeman Playground in Oak Square. That's up for a renovation next year. We're looking at Healy Playground in Roslindale, potentially an area behind the Flaherty Pool.
Yep.
As an area that's there. Franklin Park, Clifford Playground right across from us at 1010 Mass Ave. Looking at that area for one in Roxbury. Flaherty Playground, we're going through that process now in Jamaica Plain. And Harambe, formerly known as Franklin Field, right there on Blue Hill Ave in Talbot. The ones that are in our queue.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Woods. That's actually really encouraging to hear that long list. My last question is that there are a lot of parcels that are low opportunity, right? And I've talked about these parcels. They're the parcels that are either too small or too awkwardly shaped to have anything developed on them. What are some of the pros and cons of like pocket park styles? Like these are, this is like, these areas are like 3,000 square feet, maybe 4,000 square feet. They're very small. And I think that there's some of them that might be, not 100 feet from an abutter and so on and so forth. But I'm sure that there's a handful from the low priority ones, at least here in my district, that could be used. And so I don't know much about pocket parks, and maybe this is a conversation for, like some answer for the Friends of the JP Dog Parks or Chris and Commissioner Woods to collectively answer. Is there any possibility for like smaller scale, like the people on the street use this little area to like bring their dogs to? Yeah, that's one of the things I've been mulling over.
Councilmember Laura, I'm happy to jump in with a quick response to that one, especially as a member of your district. Draper Playground is one that we've looked at in the local area. I mean, West Roxbury is a real tough one, right? I think outside of working on DCR land, we're limited. Draper Playground is one, but the challenge with 3,000-foot dog parks and smaller dog parks is they're often operated as dog runs. So they'll be very long spaces, very narrow, because when you have that limited space, if you do it as a square, the dogs typically, the way that dog flow is and the way that dog flow behavior is that they'll typically want to move around as a pack. And if you have a square, it can create significantly more challenges with fights, significantly more challenges with tension between dog owners, feces, stepping on things. So typically the way dogs behave in a dog park, it's really interesting. One is they want to run, and two is they usually defecate in the similar areas, which will be far away from where the people stand. It's a very strange thing that you notice at dog parks. So oblong dog parks with strange shapes or really long squares work out, or dog runs. So sometimes a pocket park can serve a really great purpose. I know when I was living in DC, we had several dog runs that might have been only 3,000 square feet. It might be only 15 to 20 feet wide and then, 100 feet long, which still definitely serves a purpose. The only challenge is that you are very limited to a rectangle. That's the only thing that really works based on dog behavior. And you have that, especially if you've got ball field. Like again, Draper Playground's a great example where you couldn't get a 10,000 square foot park at Draper, but you could get a long dog run alongside the wall on Draper down at the bottom of the ball fields. Like you can definitely get a long dog run there. But typically dog behavior wouldn't allow for a 3,000 square foot, let's say, square park, because it would lead to more tension and more community challenge.
So the shape matters in terms of if it's going to be like a small dog run or something. It has to make sure that it's the correct shape. That's helpful.
Definitely, the shape is critical. And then the other thing too, that based on the planning process, one thing I wanted to call out earlier is that the big challenge that we have outside of Jamaica Plain, which has such a wonderful and united community, is that getting the community together is really hard. So building friends of groups before a park even exists is a really great way for some of the liabilities, some of the maintenance challenges to come off of Ryan and Parks' plate and into a nonprofit, into a friends of. When Ryan talked about Healy Field, I had been working with Ryan Catt and crew for 2 years to try to get that to go through. And we had identified, 10, 20 homeowners. But it took us a long time to build that. If we can build that infrastructure, that community infrastructure, and actually connect all of these disparate dog owners in the other neighborhoods, that could go a long way to helping us ease some of the budgetary challenges of long-term maintenance. That's the biggest challenge here, I think, is not just the parcel identification, but how do we make sure this isn't a constant challenge for parks, but also the dog owners are stepping up and playing a role as well in maintenance.
Commissioner Woods, do you all do any outreach? You know, we talked about the 10,000 dogs being registered. I think that gives us very close access to the 10,000 owners that are registered. But do you have any outreach, you know, tabling or anything in any particular neighborhoods to help people get their dogs registered or give education and information about getting their dogs registered to kind of up that number of registered dogs?
Sure. The Animal Care and Control Division is small but mighty. They are out there. I think one of their best things is they do their free clinics. So they try to educate, if you want to bring your dog for rabies shots and for microchipping, they do a series of 12 different visits throughout the neighborhoods at community centers and use that as a way to educate and say, hey, your dog may have been registered before. We can help you re-register your dog now, or your dog is not registered. Do you know that the city requires that, and here's the process to go do it. Besides that, I'm just, our staff is all out usually doing enforcement. And I don't know they table, they may be at coffee hours or something like that, but it's not a regular table to them.
Okay. All right. I think that those are all the questions that I have. And we'll continue having conversations, you know, offline, obviously, about how to move forward with this. And I'll actually, Kat, thank you so much for just kind of pointing to the Planning Advisory Committee, because it might be also just to want to have a conversation about them, about what the future of this land audit is going to be if we want to use city-owned land. Are there any other questions or any closing statements that folks want to make? Melissa, please go right ahead. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you once again for everybody for having this important hearing. I would suggest also, I think there are several people in the Boston community throughout our different neighborhoods who would like to be a part of this conversation going forward. And having some sort of commission on dog parks would, I think, be helpful. I think Chris would be a really awesome advocate for the dog parks. And we would like to be included as well as conversations continue. It's tricky. You know, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to dog parks. There's butter issues. There's little leagues and sports dads and moms that have concerns. And I think that the more conversation that we have, the more transparent we can be about resolving these issues. I think the happier that the whole community will be when we try to introduce more dog parks into the neighborhoods. And so we welcome the opportunity to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Chris, is that your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to have a closing statement too, and I thank you, Councilmember Lara. I completely agree. I think organizing a commission. I served in the Animal Commission for 2 years, and Alexis and crew is working so hard to try to just maintain the peace and help out the dogs that have such a great need at the City of Boston shelter in Roslindale. We tried for 2 years to have dog parks as a part of our function, but there was just so much other work to do. Having a separate commission, either through the mayor's office or even through the council in some way, shape, or form, to focus on this issue with dog owners from each and every different neighborhood, as well as Ryan and other representatives, would be an immense win, I think, for the city of Boston in 2023. To ensure this actually goes from passion and passion and conviction to action. So I'm fully in support of that. I would be grateful to serve the city again in any way, shape, or form. And I'm so grateful to all of you for hosting this meeting.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you and all of your hard work. At this moment, I want to thank all of our panelists, and I'm going to turn over the floor for public testimony. Megan, do we have anybody signed up for public testimony?
Yes, we have one person, and I'll bring them over now.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. For all testimony, please state your name and neighborhood or affiliation, and please try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. If there's only one person here, I'll give you a little bit more leeway if you have more to say.
Hi, everyone. It's Sarah Freeman, JP. Sorry it took me a minute to unmute. Thank you, first of all. I'll try to be brief because it's late and I won't repeat what's been said. Thank you to the council for holding this hearing and to the awesome Friends Group testimony for all the work you're doing. I love the goal of a dog park in every neighborhood. Anyone, you probably can't see, but my whole refrigerator is full of pictures of dogs. I don't currently actually have a dog, but I'm a big fan of, I think dogs make us better people and they have their priorities. We can learn a lot from dogs. But in terms of the off-leash areas, it's so important for a dog to be able to stretch their legs and run. And I know I had a greyhound, so we couldn't run. Even when I was a runner, we couldn't run together. My runs were my runs. And when I'd go out with him, we'd walk and he'd sniff and pee and do what dogs do. But an off-leash area for a dog like that is just really important. And other cities have done it. People have already commented how we don't stack up well. I second the idea of learning from other examples like Brookline or the shared space like the church in JP at the monument went through a very fraught development of a trial that's actually turned out pretty well. And I think people's worst fears don't always come to fruition. I have two comments, one on the registration. Don't they every year on the voter household census, there's a question about dogs? I don't know if people are forthright there, but that seems like an interesting way to get info out. On Councilor Lara's question about land use and having conversations coordinated about that, I can't there aren't strong enough words to say how important that is. And having seen the opposite of that at the state level recently, where it was just decided, here's what's going to happen on this site, and the public conversation was really after the fact, so that doesn't make people feel good. And I think there are a lot of competing needs, but just really important questions. So let me know if there's any way I can support and try to find good outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your testimony, and thank you to you all for all of your steadfast work, your multi-decade commitment to getting this done for the people of the city. We are all better for it. I am not a dog owner. I am scared of dogs, and I'm allergic to dogs. And that is my secret as your counselor. And it is for both of those reasons that I am always very, very happy to advocate for dog parks and to advocate for you having your own space. So that I don't have to worry about them. My kid is a big fan of dogs. So, when we're out at the parks, he definitely enjoys it. So I am, really grateful as somebody who is a little bit disconnected from the issue. I just wanted to say thank you. And as of right now, this committee hearing of the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks is adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Kendra, get acupuncture. It helps with allergies. I ended it.